Hello and welcome to Wedding Wednesdays with Weddings Online. My name is Kelly and I'm a former wedding planner and blogger, and I'm obsessed with weddings. If you're planning a wedding in Ireland, you're in the right place. You're going to learn the tried and tested methods to planning your dream wedding without the added stress. Think of this as your one-stop shop for everything to do with planning your wedding in Ireland. With me, your new wedding planning bestie, and a cup of tea. This is Wedding Wednesdays with Weddings Online. Well, happy Wednesday and welcome to a brand new episode of Wedding Wednesdays with Weddings Online. Last week, I shared some genius ways that you can save money on your wedding. So if you missed it, that's episode 80 of the podcast. And I shared some really cool tips, including one that I implemented for my very own wedding and for weddings that I planned when I was still a wedding planner. So you don't want to miss it. One of the tips that I shared is to create some wiggle room in your budget, because sometimes you're going to have some unexpected costs that'll pop up. And that is why today's episode is all about the things that couples forget to plan for. So I'm going to list some things, and I guarantee you there will be something on this list that you haven't thought of, and it's going to be coming outside of your budget. So I'm going to walk you through the list. I'm categorizing everything so I can really help you. Take note of all these items because they will probably crop up. And if you have thought of some of these things, well done. That means you're super organized and I'm very impressed with you. But also don't feel bad if I list something here and you think, oh flip, I didn't even think of putting that in our budget. So let's get started with the pre-wedding stuff. First thing, your pre-wedding outfits. Now, of course, you've thought about your wedding day outfits, but have you thought about the things that you're wearing to the other events that happen before the wedding day? Like, for example, if you're having an engagement party or a hen party or an engagement shoot, where's the money going to come from to purchase those outfits? Your wedding budget. So don't forget to put that in. What about things like your gifts that you give to your wedding party when you ask them to be involved in the day? You know, those like really cute bridesmaid proposal boxes and those types of things? It's still part of your wedding, and so you got to put it in the budget. What about things like postage? If you're printing and posting invitations, don't forget the actual postage cost, which can be about €1 per envelope, depending on the weight and the size. So if you add it all up, depending on how many people you're inviting and how many invitation sets that you're sending out, you could be looking at €30 and maybe even as high as €250 that needs to be in your budget. So you need to consider that. Speaking of pre-wedding stuff, what about the pre-wedding food? The things that you eat on the morning of the day, depending on what time you're getting married and what time the ceremony is and when you're getting ready, think about all the people that are going to be around on the morning of your wedding and those of them that need to be fed. That money needs to come from somewhere. So don't forget to put that in your budget. The next category is everything to do with your outfits, the beauty things, everything you're wearing, everything's going to make you look and feel your absolute best. And I guarantee you there are some things in here that you have not thought of. First thing is underwear and accessories. So sure, we know the actual outfit for there is probably sorted. But what about your veil, your shoes, your bra, any kind of shapewear, your garter, your jewelry? And for the boys, things like shoes, socks, cufflinks. All of those items are part of your outfit for the day and should be grouped together with all the attire and accessories category things in your wedding budget. What about things like beauty treatments? You've probably already factored in your hair and makeup, but what about things like a mani and a pedi? If you are having a spray tan, or if you're going to get your teeth whitened, or if you feel like you would like to treat yourself to a pre-wedding day massage, all of those things are part of your beauty treatment section. So add those to your budget too. What about your hair and makeup trials? Now, I know you've booked your hair and makeup, you've thought about that, but have you thought about the trials? I always recommend having a trial because it gives you a chance to get to know the person who's going to be with you on the morning of your wedding, making you look and feel beautiful, but it also gives them a chance to get to know you and the type of style that you're after. So a trial is not to be skipped, but it should come out of your wedding budget. Speaking of your outfit, don't forget the alterations. It doesn't matter how big or small, short or tall you are. It doesn't matter if you're planning on losing weight for the wedding or not. You will probably need to have your wedding outfit altered to fit you. And those alterations will come at an extra cost, and it will need to be in your budget. Our next category is everything to do with wedding decor. So first item is your wedding stationery. Now, I know you've thought about the invitations and you've probably thought about the save the dates, but have you thought about things like mass booklets and menus? What about place cards, a table plan, thank you cards for afterwards? All of those things are wedding stationery things and should be itemized on your budget. Speaking of decor, have you thought about how the decor is going to get to your wedding day, how it's going to be set up, and then how it's going to be taken down and then returned to wherever it needs to go? So everything to do with the decor delivery, setup, and breakdown should be considered. So have a chat with your wedding planner, the person who's handling all your decor items, whoever that might be, and ask for the actual costs of each thing to be broken down for you so that you know exactly what you're paying for. Some wedding planners factor those costs into their price. Some wedding venues will handle setup and breakdown without charging you extra. So it really does come down to who you're working with and what your unique situation is. But for most people, there will be a cost associated with those things. So you don't want to forget about those. What about the sound system at your ceremony? So I know you've probably thought about the DJ and the band at the reception, and they'll come with a sound system, so that's no problem. And many venues actually have a basic PA system, but you want to make sure that you have this covered. So chat with your venue, chat with your DJ. It might be that your band or DJ comes earlier. It might be that your ceremony musicians have a sound system you can use. Have a chat and figure out what this is and if there is an additional cost associated with this. Because the last thing you want is to have no sound system and then your guests can't hear you exchanging vows during your wedding ceremony. And speaking of your decor and your venue and everything to do with that, what about your plan B? It is Ireland after all, so I highly recommend having a plan B just in case the weather doesn't do what you want it to do. If there's rain, if there's lots of wind, if there's snow, if it's cold, if it's extra hot, there's so many things that could happen where you may need to hire in things like a marquee, something that you can use to cover guests if it's really hot and sunny or really rainy. You may want to get umbrellas, a tent floor if it's very rainy. Those types of things should be in your plan B, because what you don't want is to fill up your wedding budget and get to the week before the wedding and go, oh no, I don't have money for these extra items that I need. Let's talk about your suppliers for a moment. Don't forget about a meal for them. So you've probably already thought about the meal for all your guests, of course, but you want to have something for your suppliers. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to be the 3-course meal that your guests are getting, but your suppliers will need a hot meal and something to drink and an opportunity to put their feet up and just have a bit of a rest at some point in the day, because they will be on their feet for the whole day. So we're talking about your photographer, your DJ, your wedding planner, any supplier who's going to be with you for most of the day. You don't need to worry about venue staff and caterers because they will tend to sort themselves out. But anyone who's kind of traveling to get to your day to simply be there and make your day happen, they will need something to eat and drink. You don't need to think about things like the table that they will be seated at, because often the wedding planners and band, they can often eat at the bar. Have a chat with them and have a chat with your venue to see what the options are, because for most wedding suppliers, it doesn't make sense for them to have a whole table that's, out in the reception hall with the decor and the centerpieces and everything, because most of the time they won't be sitting there other than the few minutes that they have to eat. And so that would then be another additional cost of the table, the chairs, the tablecloth, and all the things that go on the table. But have a chat with your venue and see what options they have, because often the wedding venue has an additional room where the suppliers can store their belongings and then stay to have something to eat as well. What about things like tax and service charges? There might be some hidden costs there that can really add up. And, it could be things like the venue adding on a cost for the staff. It could be things like tax on the quotes that your suppliers are giving to you. Just have a look at all the contracts so that you know what you're paying and what the extras might be. And if in doubt, go back to the supplier and say, I just wanted to check if I've missed anything, and just ask the questions you need to ask while you're making decisions about who you're going to book. Another venue type of cost and supplier cost that you might not be thinking about is what to do if you have any extra hours that you are paying for. So let's say you've decided that you're going to finish the party at 2 a.m. and in the moment, the party is going so well, you're having so much fun and your guests are having the best time and you just want to have one more hour with everybody. Who do you need to pay for that extra hour? So you need to chat with your band, you need to chat with the DJ, the venue coordinator, and any other suppliers who you are paying for a certain amount of time. If you want your photographer to be there right up until the end, you want to chat with them as well. So it's helpful to know ahead of time who you need to pay for any extra hours and what that cost will be, and factor that into your budget. And if you can't afford it, then you know when it comes to the wedding day that once you get to that time, that is the end of the day and you need to just be okay with that. And the final thing that people always forget to include, and I'm not exaggerating when I say this happens more often than you would think, don't forget to include yourself. So if you are having 150 guests, great, but don't forget about the extra 2 because you guys will also need to eat. You will also need to have name cards. You will need to have a table and chairs and all the things that go with the table decor and the chairs. So don't forget to include yourselves in the head count because that would be really awkward if you forgot that. Well, thank you for listening today. The Wedding Wednesdays with Weddings Online podcast is produced by me, Kelly, and mixed, mastered, and edited by Glenn Hartman. For more wedding planning tips, advice, checklists, and more, visit weddingsonline.ie.